Uncorked, where I marry my love of our wonderful Virginia wine industry with my love of all things real estate. We are here at beautiful Otium Cellars in Purcellville, Virginia, and we have a very special guest. The general manager is going to tell us about the wine we are drinking today. This is Chris Monroe, and we're super happy to have him here to say the name of this wine, which is really hard for me to say. Okay.
Well, welcome back.
Thank you.
It's a little bit warmer than last time you guys were in.
And
Yes.
greener.
Yeah, we switched it up, went to a summer, spring outdoor wine for the season.
Last time we had the Blau Frankish.
You had the Blau Frankish.
Right,
yes,
and
another
this
German
time
varietal.
we are having the
Grüne Veltliner.
nice. I'm not even going to pronounce it.
This is an Austrian varietal. It's a little bit drier and acidic than some of the Pinot Gris and some of the Chardonnays and stuff that you would taste during the season. You're still going to get some citrus notes with it, and then a little subtle hint of white pepper on the finish with it. It goes really well with any spicy foods, Thai food, Indian food, even great with like some blackened shrimp on the grill. Awesome.
Nice, that would be really great. One of the great things about coming out to the winery and having the general manager here with you is he knows everything that pairs perfectly with all of these wines. So he put together a special cheese board for us, which I love. Everybody knows I love cheese boards. So tell us about what you put together for us today.
So I just went with something really light, something that would pair good with the wine. What we did is we went with a bracciola, which is a salted, thinly sliced beef. And then I went with a smoked Gruyere cheese and just a very traditional cracker, lightly salted. So you get a little bit of different flavors. You get a little smokiness, a little saltiness, and just a great complement with the wine.
Awesome, and it looks so beautiful,
My mouth is
which
watering.
I
I gotta
totally
be honest.
appreciate. We decided it's a nice warm day. We're going to have one of their great whites. We're coming to you in the summertime, so we really want to be able to give you a wine that you can come out here to beautiful Otium Cellars and ask for at the counter. Shall we try the wine?
I think we should.
Okay, and you're going to try with us?
Absolutely.
Okay. So what kind of nose, what kind of characteristics does this wine have that makes it different from other wines?
Just the varietal itself. We are one of the only wineries in the area that is actually growing and producing the Gruner. With this varietal here locally being grown in Virginia, the notes we see with this are still some citrus notes. You're going to see a little bit of apple and some pear on the nose. Some regions you will start to get a little bit of peach notes to it, which really accents it if you find some of the true Austrian or Czech Gruners. Just a really clean, light, easy drinking white wine.
So
All right.
let's not hold back any longer.
Cheers.
Cheers.
And we are back at Otium Cellars because we loved it so much. We did our debut episode from here.
Yes, we did.
And back by popular demand is Eric
The
Spencer.
demand has been overwhelming. I understand
He
online.
was our first guest. We have him back again because he has a great program that I really haven't heard a lot of lenders talk about that I think you're going to want to hear if you're a seller. Eric, introduce yourself a little bit and tell us a
Sure.
little bit about yourself for people who didn't see the first episode.
Sure. I'm Eric Spencer, and I'm with Churchill Mortgage here locally in the Washington, D.C. area. The program we're going to talk about today is hopefully a little different, just a little bit of a different interest for everybody that's watching this, because it really ties in really well with sellers, which you don't hear mortgage people, I don't think, addressing or talking about a whole lot. We're always focused on the buyers because we're doing the loan.
Right.
But this really has a lot to do with the seller. The seller and the buyer really have to be partners in this situation, and we'll tease that a little bit and talk about it a little bit as we go into the episode.
So Eric, obviously you are licensed to do loans in Virginia, but where else are you licensed to do loans? Because you are a local lender, which we always talk about is great
Yeah.
here, but where else do you do loans?
So I'm licensed in DC, Virginia, and Maryland because here is my primary focus, and I service a lot of clientele here in this area. But I also hold my Florida and my North Carolina licenses because primarily...
Because you like to vacation there?
Because I like to vacation there, primarily because people up here move down there and either buy a second home or move completely and retire or stuff like that. So it's worked out through the years to be able to continue servicing people for their lifetimes.
True.
To be able to help them buy their vacation homes or their retirement home in North Carolina and Florida from this area.
Nice. So Eric is going to talk to us about something that I think is rather innovative and a good way for buyers and sellers, as you've said, to work together to get the best loan option and the best sales price for the seller, and it's called a seller paid buy down. Is that right?
Correct. Seller paid buy down strategy, because it really is a strategy. Unlike just talking about a 30-year fixed rate mortgage or a 4% interest rate or those type of typical things that most people kind of focus on and get fixated on, this is really much more of a strategy, and it really has to do a lot with certain times in the market where the seller might want to consider, or the seller's real estate agent might want to consider a price reduction on the house. So that's not all the time. That's really when there's turning points in neighborhoods or markets, that kind of thing. And it really involves taking what you would have used with the price reduction that you might consider and turning that into seller paid closing costs that go towards the buyer so that they can buy their interest rate down a dramatic amount and reduce their payment by a dramatic amount. That can be done anytime. That's not really new in and of itself as far as paying points to buy your interest rate down. What changes the dynamic is if the seller thinks that they might want to reduce their price, then they may take some of that money that they were going to reduce the price by and go ahead and offer it specifically to the buyer of their listing, their home, to pay a lot of points. And by a lot, I mean it can be 3%, 4%, 5 points, those type of point numbers to buy the rate down. We talked about this before. You get too far into this and it's almost like inside baseball. People's eyes start glazing over, right? So don't do that.
We find it interesting, but
Right.
we understand the nitty-gritty the general public can find rather.
A lot of numbers here, a lot of that kind of thing. But here's the thing I want you to take away from this. By offering a seller buy down of the interest rate for the buyer, you can actually do a 3-to-1 equation on that. So for every $3 that you would reduce the price, the seller can offer $1 in the seller paid buy down to the buyer's closing cost, to the buyer buying the rate down, and get the same effect on the monthly payment.
So, okay, correct me if I'm wrong, because it's math, so I have to be careful. We'll keep it round numbers for the sake of math. On like a $900,000 house, they were looking to do a $30,000 price reduction. They could get the same effect for the buyer by doing $10,000 in closing costs?
Yes, that's exactly correct.
So really, instead of dropping by 30, you're
Yes.
dropping by 10.
That's correct. So there's some tremendous capability when you do this strategy to have a really big win-win for the buyer and the seller. You think about it, the seller was going to reduce their price $30,000 because that seemed to be what the market was going to bear and would actually move the property better. But they could offer $10,000 to the buyer instead. So they now have saved themselves $20,000 over what they were just planning on doing and the end money that they're going to receive from that house.
The layman would think, well, $30,000 price reduction is better than a $10,000 closing cost, but why is it also a win for the buyer?
It's a win for the buyer because if you pay $10,000 in points to buy the rate lower, you're going to get the same monthly payment as if you had reduced the price $30,000. Now here's where the win-win can really come in. Let's say that the seller says, I'm going to try to incentivize the buyers out there to do this
As a
because it
marketing
saves me money.
strategy.
As a marketing
Yeah,
strategy, it
it's a marketing
saves me money. I'm going to save $20,000. Well, let's say we, instead of decide we're going to keep all of that $20,000 savings for us as the seller, we're going to offer $15,000. Okay, so now you're going to offer $15,000 towards the buy down with the points. You're now going to make it so the buyer can reduce their payment lower than if you would have had a $30,000 price reduction.
Wow.
So now you're just saved yourself $15,000 as the seller. You now are giving the buyer the capability of having a lower payment than they were going to have with your $30,000 price reduction. It's a total win-win.
That's insane.
It's a total win-win.
I love it.
And so that's really the thing I want you to remember is 3 to 1, right? 3 to 1 ratio.
Okay.
It's $3 in the price reduction equals $1 that you could contribute towards paying points. That's going to equal the same monthly payment for the buyer with each of those.
Wow.
Lot of capability in there to mess with that.
My mind, my brain,
Right,
the
so
wheels are turning.
hopefully we didn't lose you.
That.
Hopefully your eyes didn't glaze over,
Hopefully
anybody
not.
that's watching this.
I think knowing about this is great for buyers because if they are looking for closing cost help to get that interest rate down, if we've had a bump in interest rate and say, hey, we're thinking about asking you for this price reduction, but actually if you do this, it's better for us. So I
Yes.
think it's great for them to have as a strategy. The Northern Virginia housing market is also a very complex and complicated
Very,
housing
yeah,
market.
very.
So we have...
And it's full of thousands and thousands of micro markets.
Exactly, that's exactly what I was
So-
going to say. So there are pockets or neighborhoods in Northern Virginia that sell better or worse than the average. And so this could be something where if you need to move a house at a time of year that's challenging,
Yep.
so maybe you find out that you're moving in October,
Yep.
there's not a lot of buyers out there, this is an opportunity that you could use this marketing strategy as a seller. Or maybe if you have something challenging around your home, if you've had a reduction in school ratings where it's made your neighborhood a little less attractive than maybe another neighborhood with similar priced homes at a higher school rating. I am just really thinking about how I could use this on the listing side and on the buy side.
It's
I'm super
intriguing.
excited
It's
about
intriguing.
sharing this with us.
The key to this is you really have to, it's education, because you really have to have smart agents on both sides of this that get it. A lot of times I do a lot of education around that in the transaction to make sure that everybody understands how powerful it is and where their advantage is, and that this is an advantageous situation instead of just the standard kind of inside the box, reducing your price or here's some seller contribution towards your closing costs, the standard stuff. We actually spreadsheet that out because this kind of stuff's a lot easier to see with numbers on a spreadsheet. So I actually do a whole spreadsheeting thing with this so everybody in the transaction can see what's going on and where they're really making headway on this and where their advantages really are and the fact that it is really a win-win.
I love it. And that's why I have Eric as one of my trusted lenders because as I've said on our previous episode, he has a very strategic approach to lending. He's also the kind of lender that will call and talk things through and help you figure out what works best and maybe help some other people on the other side of the transaction understand how things work.
Absolutely. Always try to do that.
Awesome.
Always try to do that.
All right, well, good stuff.
Good strategic stuff.
Hello everybody, we're here with Chris Monroe, the general manager at Otium Cellars in Purcellville, Virginia. I was hoping that you could tell us a little bit about how the winery got started.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are German themed and inspired. Our owner Gerhard Bauer moved here from Germany in the early 90s and had the property first as an equestrian facility and then decided to do something else with the property. We decided to grow some fruit for wine. Initially going to sell the fruit to some of the other local wineries that were popping up. Because of the varietals that he chose, a lot of them took a pass on it and they actually went back and consulted with a winemaker and made the first rounds of wine. Went back, tasted them a little bit later and found that they had a great property for growing the fruit and making the wines.
I feel that the German varietals are something that really set you apart from other wineries in the area. What was the first varietal? What was the first wine that you guys actually bottled?
The Blaufränkisch was the first one because that was one that they really liked. Gerhard picked varietals that would grow well here because the terroir here is similar to the weather that he would see in Germany where he was from.
Where was he from in Germany?
He's from northeastern Bavaria.
Okay, I love Bavaria. Can you tell us about the different varietals that you carry?
Yes, as you probably saw earlier, we did talk about our Gruner. That's one of our more popular whites during the summer months. But we do have a full lineup of wines. We do have some of the traditional varietals, your Chardonnays and your Cabernet Sauvignon. But the majority of our wines are like the Gruner. We do like that German flair with our wines. We have a Blaufränkisch, which is amazing.
Which we tried in our debut episode, which was so amazing.
And then our Dornfelder, it's a bigger, bolder red. It was actually a hybrid varietal. It was created back in the 50s in Germany. That's done really well for us. The current vintage that we have that we're serving is kind of made to be similar to a sweeter summer red.
Okay, so what would somebody pair a Dornfelder with?
It was, when we initially released it, we actually used it with our dessert course in a food and wine pairing, and we had it with a sponge cake with fresh crown and dark berries.
Sounds
and it worked
amazing.
really well.
Awesome. Do you all do events?
We do. We do weddings, we can do rehearsal dinners, corporate outings. Get out of the office and get away from that fluorescent tan and get out and then outside
Absolutely.
and enjoy the vine.
Get some vitamin D.
Absolutely. We do have live music. We have music year round. Generally, we have music on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sunday. Fridays, we're open until 9 o'clock, so we're one of the only
Pretty
wineries.
late for a winery.
Right. We're the late night owls.
Well, thank you, Chris, so much for sharing.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thanks for coming out and seeing us again.
Our
Next
pleasure.
time, since we've done a white and we've done a red, next time we're going to have to do a new release with you.
Oh, yes, maybe we'll come out and debut the wine. That would be amazing. Thank you for your hospitality. I definitely want to encourage everybody to come out to Otium Cellars. And if you come out to Otium Cellars, tell them Ashleigh sent you. Take care, everyone.
Bye.